Здравствуйте! Сегодня с нами в «Зелёной гостиной» замечательный артист балета, человек, который многие годы возглавляет Штутгартский балет, Рид Андерсон. И мой первый вопрос будет такой. Вот уже более 15 лет вы возглавляете труппу Штутгартского балета. Что для вас самое сложное в этой работе?
At the beginning, it was very challenging going into another system because I had been the director of the National Ballet of Canada, which directing a ballet company in North America is a completely different animal than directing a ballet company in Europe. So it took me a while to get used to being back in a company that is subsidized by the government, where we don't have to do a lot of fundraising. And so that was great. And it wasn't challenging, actually, but it was a wonderful feeling to finally be able to do 3 new ballets on one evening, and people sold out 100%. And sometimes finding the right combination of people and finding the choreographers that both from within our company and not within our company. And the challenge has been sometimes I have too much material. I have too many things I could do, and then I have to pick out what I can do. And what I can't do sometimes, it's a little bit like this. You feel like, I really would love to do that. But you only have we dance a lot. We have like 8 or 9 different programs, and we dance about 100 times in Stuttgart. And so there's a lot of work to do. But sometimes I get a bit frustrated that I can't do all the work I would like to do.
Ну, в каждой труппе, конечно, сегодня есть свое лицо. А в чем для вас свое лицо штутгартского балета?
I think it's always been that when we dance, of course, we have to do the steps correctly and try to do it at a very high technical level. But I think what our trademark is this amazing way of natural acting, and that John used to say, "You're only as good as the worst person on stage." So it's this thing that the whole stage is bubbling. Everywhere you look, you're seeing like little stories, and the whole corps de ballet are not acting like a corps de ballet. They're acting like real people. You just happen to be looking at certain people that are bringing the story forward. But that the company feels really that they are very, very important to the action, to the reaction, to the drama. And that is, that's the way it's been since we learned that with John. And I remember when I came to the company in 1969, I was 19 and I just got out of the Royal Ballet School in London. And in those days, it's not like that now, but in those days, everybody stood around sort of standing and going, ooh, and ah, and so artificial. And when I came to Stuttgart, it was so natural. The way the dancers moved, it was totally natural and totally real. I think that's one of the things that drives us and gives this feeling of energy on the stage and reality through dancing. I think that's the thing that impressed me the most then, and that's what we try to do now in everything we do.
И вот незадолго до своей смерти Джон Кранко создал школу. Насколько вы это все начинаете развивать уже в школе? И насколько школа вообще важна для вашей труппы?
We have the Vaganova method, but a kind of modern version of the Vaganova method. Not just that one does steps, that one can do the steps, but how you do the steps, and also not just having a school that are using their heads, but also a school that are using their hearts. That they're taught to dance, because I always say that a lot of people can do the steps, but not many people can really dance. And also we stress modern dance, and we do a lot of modern work in the school already. And then when they are getting into the last 2 classes, they come and dance with us a lot. So I can see that who are the ones that will fit into the company, who are the ones that maybe not. They come as apprentices, mostly the first year as an apprentice, And then if they really work well with the company, and the nice thing about having your own school, you see them all the time. I have young people in the company now. I've known them since they were this high, right? So you can watch them go through the process of becoming a dancer. And this has been extremely important. In the last 5 years, we used to do huge auditions, and like 300 people would come converge on Stuttgart, and then we had maybe 2 or 3 places. Now, for the last 5 years, we've not done one audition. Practically every person that's come into the company in the last 5 years comes from the school. So we went from a kind of maybe 1/3 of the company being from the school. Now we have 2/3 of the company being from the school. And sometimes I can look at a dance, and every single person in that dance is from the school. So I find it extremely important. And they also work with us. The young children work with us. Let's say in Marcia Heide's Sleeping Beauty. Well, there are 100 people from the school in it, with 2 casts, right? Because you have to have 2 casts. And so it's one of the most important things I think we've done in the last years is building up the school to a very high level. Because even if they don't get into the company, they will get into another company. They all get jobs. So my answer to that question is, that's one of the most important things to me, is that we have the school. And also, the school is under me. So the school director, I'm his boss. And so we discuss everything together, and we know where we're going. We know what we want to do. We know which children to push and which ones will probably make it. And so we have a game plan for the future for the young people. So I think that's really important as well.
Когда вы пришли туда работать, в Штутгартский балет, вам было 19 лет, вы сказали. Мне интересно, чем впечатлился Джон Кранко, как вы проходили ваш аудишн, почему он вас принял? И кроме того, вы сказали, что Джон научил вас всему. Чему он вас научил? Что было самое главное в том, что он учил? И вот та естественность, которая существует в труппе Штутгартского балета, шло ли это от него? Учил ли он этому как-то? Или это какое-то врожденное качество?
Well, I often wondered why John chose me. I wouldn't have chosen me. If I auditioned for me today, I would not take me into the company. But you must remember, it was a long time ago, and the standard of male dancing was not as high as it is today. Like the boys that I have in the company now, they can all do everything. Double this, grand pirouette, they can do it all. And in those days, there were only a couple of people in the company that could do all those tricks and things. So it was a completely different atmosphere. But there must have been something that John liked in me. I was also, in those days, very tall for a dancer. And then now all my boys are like here to me. And I guess he liked something about my look or something like that. Because in the same season, Jerzy Kilian, he was in the Royal Ballet School with me. He joined the same season. And then there was a very fine dancer called Vladimir Kloss. And John kind of made ballets where the 3 of us were together. And so straight away, with 19, I was doing Paris in Romeo and Juliet. I had never done anything like that before. And a few months later, I was 20, and I was doing Prince Gremin in Onegin, and he's supposed to be around 60. But I had this kind of face, this kind of strong face, even though I was so young. I always say, when I was 19, I looked 40, and finally when I was 40, I looked 40. So it was, but he liked my energy, and also I was a very good partner. So he could put me into things quickly, and in those days, there weren't that many people that did that. So there was that interest. But he also was very, I had a talk, and you could talk to John. Like you could go into the office and you could really talk to him, and I never really liked anything about me. So I went into John's office and said, I have a big head and I have a short neck and I have no shoulders and my upper body's like this and my legs are like that, sort of like a cigarette package on toothpicks. And I was telling him all these things, and then what I didn't like about myself. Because you look, and when you're a dancer, you look every day in the mirror. And every day I looked in that mirror, I didn't care for what I was seeing. And the other thing was, when I got into the company, I wasn't technically that good. I learned to be good, or fairly good at it, in the company. I could turn and things like that, but I didn't have the finesse. And I had to learn all of that, push myself to learn that in the company. Anyway, after I told John that, about what I thought about myself, do you know what he said to me? He said, "That's exactly what I like about you." Which gave me great confidence, of course, because I went out of the room thinking, gosh, it's not so bad after all. He was like that. So that's exactly what I like about you. You're not like everybody else. So it was we were encouraged to be individuals, and we were very well coached. Coached about what works on stage, what doesn't work on stage, how to be real on stage. We were taught all of those things.
Все-таки возглавлять труппу, которая, в общем-то, сформировалась и прославилась при Джонни Кранко, конечно, требует нахождения определенного баланса. Как вы ищете этот баланс между тем, что сохранять, что нужно менять, как вот вы сказали, вы переделали Кармен, и какие новые делать работы?
Well, of course, the obvious ones, the big three we call them, that's Romeo, Taming, and Onegin. Those are the big three. But we also have Swan Lake from John, and we dance the classics like Giselle and Don Quixote, and I mentioned Sleeping Beauty from Marcia. We dance those things. And I have an approach. Jean, here. Then the classics, this program. And then people like Balanchine and Robbins, Macmillan, that's the third one. And then many people perhaps don't know, but John Neumeier did his first ballets in Stuttgart. Jerzy Killian did his first ballets in Stuttgart. And Uwe Schultz did his first ballets. And Billy Forsythe did his. They all come from Stuttgart. So that's this one, because we do the ballets from them. And then the fifth thing is brand new work. And we do a lot of new work. And we've produced a lot of choreographers, and most of them come from the school that we work for us all the time. And we have about 4 or 5 now choreographers that are in our company. And I have to try to find, that's part of the problem, because I have to try to find things for them to do, to build them up, because they start in the small house, then maybe they do a pas de deux, then maybe they do a bit bigger ballet in the small house, then they move to the big house and then do a short work. Maybe then they get to the point where they can do a full length. So it's building up choreographers. And then I go around a lot because I coach John's ballets all over the world. And then I see a choreographer or a choreography, and I find out, oh, who's that? And that's interesting. And then find out, and then try to get them to do a ballet. A good example of that is Mauro Vigonzetti. He was quite unknown before he came and did a ballet for Stuttgart, because we have many critics that come and see the new work. Or Wayne McGregor. He was known in England, but not in continental Europe, and certainly not in the world. And so it was the first time that he had worked in Europe when he came to work for us. Or Isik Galili, he came and did ballets for us. So when I saw their work, then I invited them to come. So we do about at least six new ballets a year. And sometimes, as I pointed out earlier, 3 brand new, all on one night. Whereas that's another thing. In Toronto, I could never have done that. because people would just wouldn't come. So I would have to do maybe a white, pretty ballet at the beginning. Then I put the hard ballet in the middle, and then I put a story ballet at the end, so that the people after the hard ballet in the middle will stay to see the last work. I don't have to do any of that in Stuttgart. So that's how I build up the choreography, and then trying to figure out who fits together, who's available. And the beauty about having your own choreographers in-house is that they're there. So if you don't have, if you have to spread the time out, a little bit here, a little bit there, a week there, a little bit there, they're there because they're still dancing. So they're there, and so you can, it makes it life a lot easier when you can do it in bits and pieces. So there are many different facets, and every season is completely different. But because if we do a full-length ballet, brand new, well, that takes up 3 short ballets. So then you have to find a way of doing 3 short ballets. So but we're lucky we have three theaters, small, medium, and large. So we can work that out by doing some of the new work in a smaller theater. So it's always like a balancing act to figure out who's going to do what when. And sometimes with the choreographers that are now famous, then you've got to organize it a couple of years in advance so that you make sure you have time. So they become like the cornerstone, and you have to build everything around them. So it's a challenge.
Я знаю, что Сергей Филин общался с вами и не так быстро уговорил вас дать нам «Онегин». Почему вы сомневались?
I didn't really have doubts. Sometimes when a ballet company does something from us, sometimes it can happen that they don't stay true to the choreography, that they think that they can change things and do it their way or the way it's coached. So I would say if I had any doubt about that, because I don't really know this company, so if I had any doubts, it would be that. But then Sergei, the reason he got Onegin was he asked, right? And so, and then we kind of made it a pact. If he gets Onegin, we come here and do Romeo. So it was a handshake, and that, yeah.
Вот эти балеты вы назвали большой классикой: «Укрощение строптивой», «Ромео и Джульетту» и «Онегин». Поскольку сейчас мы видим в эти дни «Ромео и Джульетту», и вскоре в нашем репертуаре появится «Онегин», скажите, что для вас самого ценного и замечательного в этих работах Кранка?
Well, there are 2 different aspects, because Romeo is an existing score and an existing story. And many companies do their version of Romeo. Many companies do our version of Romeo too around the world, and have done so. What makes Onegin so appealing is it's the only version. Well, there are. I think I've heard that there are other versions, but it's the most famous version. But the thing about it is it's totally original. So the way the Tchaikovsky is put together, the score is what one can say it's existing music, but it's done in such a way that it's original. The whole libretto for Onegin is original, and the choreography is staggeringly beautiful. And makes the success of that ballet. And then Romeo is Romeo is Romeo. Everybody in the world knows Romeo and Juliet. And Onegin now, most people know. The beauty of a ballet like Onegin is that you can walk into the theater, not by a program. The lights go down. You've never read the poem. You don't know anything about it. And you sit down and you understand absolutely everything. That's what makes it worldwide classic. We've danced it in South America, we've danced it in the Far East, we've danced it in the Scandinavian countries, and in Italy, in France, and England. It's danced everywhere. It's probably one of the most popular ballets of the 20th century. And then comes Taming of the Shrew, which is based on Shakespeare, but also the score is original. The libretto that John put together is original. And it's an unusual ballet because it's funny. And there are not that many comic ballets in the world. There are some fabulous ones like La Fille Magadie by Frederick Ashton, but they are few and far between. So that's why these ballets are so popular, because and they're beautifully choreographed. So, but they're totally understandable. They're theatrical, and John used to say he's making ballets not for himself. He's making ballets for the public. You know, he made that so that the public would enjoy those ballets. So he wasn't kind of looking here. He was making it for there.
И мой последний вопрос. Вы танцевали когда-то на этой сцене? Сейчас вы сюда вернулись уже со своей труппой. Вы сказали, что атмосфера этого дома немножко изменилась. Ну, расскажите просто о том, что для вас наш Большой театр.
This theater is like a palace, and it's one of the most famous theaters in the world. So I mean, it's really like walking into a castle or something like that. It's like a monument. That's what incredibly done and huge. Absolutely. I still haven't found my way around the passages. There are so many ways to get everywhere, you know. And but I meant that it was in the old days, the old one, it was kind of dusty and smelly and, you know, just all of this history, and it had a completely different atmosphere, and which was also wonderful. And you know, we were all like then, but now the has become like my dancers walked in here, they couldn't believe it, just couldn't believe how extraordinarily beautiful it is. So I think that they've done a phenomenal job of restoring it, and the Bolshoi is an icon in the ballet world that everybody knows what the Bolshoi ballet is.
Я хочу сказать вам, что, во-первых, поздравить вас с открытием гастролей. Замечательно вчера это прошло. Публика наша была в восторге. Ваши артисты действительно потрясающие. На них очень приятно смотреть. Действительно живые люди на сцене. Впереди нас ждет большой гала-концерт. Я рада, что там вы представите стольких разных хореографов, которые с вами работают. И еще мне очень приятно, что все-таки в конце нашего сезона на этой сцене пойдет Онегин. И ведь действительно для западной публики пушкинские стихи практически непереводимы. Благодаря этой работе тоже Онегин стал такой классикой. И спасибо огромное вам за то, что вы это тоже сохраняете, за то, что вы позволили нам это танцевать. И мы надеемся, что вы к нам приедете на премьеру, и у меня будет шанс еще раз с вами поговорить, и чтобы вы оценили нашу работу. У нас сегодня в гостях был Рид Андерсон, руководитель Штутгартского балета.